Howdy! Welcome to the Animal Crossing Happy Home Paradise Iceberg, where I'll be discussing the DLC, the 2.0 update, and building on other aspects not previously mentioned in my prior Animal Crossing Iceberg. For those that have not played the game or the DLC, spoilers ahead. This iceberg is brought to you by Clean Casual. With the addition of DLC to Animal Crossing New Horizons, Happy Home Paradise, and the free 2.0 update, a slew of new features, villagers, and questions have been added to an already rich universe. This is a shorter iceberg cobbled together from some of the aspects discovered from the new features in-game, and there's no doubt more are to be discovered. Level 1. The Sky. 1. Blue birds. Previously unseen blue birds with lighter blue bodies and dark blue tails can be found at the new archipelago of Happy Home Paradise. On the main island and Harv's Island, a yellow bird with a green tail can be seen. In fact, this yellow bird appears to be the same species as the one first introduced in City Folk and found in various games that follow. Thus, the blue bird appears wholly new across the Animal Crossing games, color-wise, although the two share the same model. Could this be an indication that the archipelago is farther away than any previous Animal Crossing game or island locale? Similar to the Galapagos Islands, the animals found upon it have been able to evolve separately, in this case sporting a different color than their more mainland counterparts. 2. Wiring in houses. As seen since early on in Animal Crossing, being able to pick up, hang, or place furniture is instantaneous when dropping the simple Tanuki leaf. In Happy Home Paradise, no construction or next day moving service is needed, as players literally pick up and move a house around as they see fit, changing its entire structure based upon their whims. How are the electrical, lighting, and plumbing for houses handled? Multiple toilets can be set down, and they all function. So where does the waste go? Does unseen pipework then extend under the appliance? Light fixtures can be hung or mounted, appliances plugged in, and so on, all without visible wiring. What if the house's foundation is self-contained, or perhaps, like the houses themselves, larger on the inside than the outside? An inner network of waste disposal and power stations that make sure a circuit isn't blown when 50 refrigerators are plugged in. Or perhaps it is an illusion or otherwise a result of Tanuki magic that allows them to function. 3. Square grass, differing ecosystems. Similar to the blue birds, the grass found not only on the archipelago but on Kapp'n's island tours is square. Vines, moss, new shrubs, birds, white and not tan cliffs, and differing grasses are all found at these new locales. Is this a similar matter of isolation or allopatric evolution of the native flora and fauna? Why didn't Dodo Airlines take the player to these islands if they were close enough to be reached by boat in a day's time frame? Regardless, having been kept separate for a time span long enough to allow for species variance, could the reintroduction of microbes and organic material adversely impact either location? Plants and animals have not been able to encounter the exact same illnesses and blights, and thus have been unable to work up immunities to them, leaving them vulnerable. We do see that Lottie becomes sick and must be taken to a hospital off-island by Wilbur. Could this be the result of some of the new flora and fauna encountered or ingested? 4. Poke. A new form of currency and legal tender, Poke, has been established in Happy Home Paradise. There are a few potential explanations for this. A. The alternate currency could speak to it being located upon an international or otherwise distance-based locale change. For example, take the US dollar compared to the euro. Again, this can potentially demonstrate the sheer distance covered to reach the archipelago. Like region or country-based products, the items and products purchased here are unique, and most cannot normally be found in circulation on the player's main island. B. Like Nook Miles tickets, it works as an area-based or entertainment-based currency. Like Chuck E. Cheese tokens or tickets that can be used for tender only at that location to buy the assorted prizes. Additionally, given the player's position as an employee, it could also be seen as in-store credit. C. A bit more meta, but it allows for an alternate currency to exist that does not inflate the Bell market nor the Nook Miles market, which would greatly disadvantage those that do not purchase the DLC or would otherwise be unable to utilize a new Bell or money-making feature. Level 2. The Tip. 5. Glowing Moss. Glowing moss can be found through Kapp'n's tours and on the archipelago. In the real world, glowing moss, or luminous moss, also called elfin gold, is a light-reflecting plant of the subclass Brydae, native to the northern hemisphere. It forms green mats in caves, holes in wood or earth, or cavities between rocks or under tree roots, which can be evidenced by some of the glowing moss's DIYs. 6. Soundscapes. Made available through progression in Happy Home Paradise, soundscapes such as a forest breeze, construction sounds, or the like can be added to any room and are not dependent upon the traditional sound-making furniture items like speakers. That begs the question, where is the sound coming from? Are unseen intercoms interlaced or pre-installed into all homes prior to construction that we can now access? If so, what else may have been installed that we have yet to discover? Could it be a figment of our own mind, a musical hallucination, or otherwise one bored out of the associated surroundings? Such hallucinations are documented to occur in primary psychotic illness, in sensory deprivation states like hearing impairment, and organic psychosis or injury. One potential theory, drawing from the prevalence of the alien presence in Animal Crossing, is that it is coming from an internal source within the body, but from an implanted chip or device. It can be controlled or turned on or off, or altered on a whim. No one is alarmed or scared of such occurrences or technology, for it is all they have ever known. 7. Red's art. Blathers is capable of identifying real art from the fake or knockoffs. The genuine art can be acquired through Red, but where does he get it from? Does he pilfer and steal it from art museums? Are we, the player, buying stolen art that Blathers casually turns a blind eye to? Assuming the art is actively stolen, it makes sense that Red initially comes to the island to scope things out before randomly parking his trawler at the back of the island, out of the way, normally away from prying eyes, and where the player, who has already shown a willingness to buy this art without tattling, makes it a viable fencing operation. How does he get away from these locations without the law fighting him or chasing after him? As I previously postulated, Red is a yokai with similar powers to Tanuki, like Tom Nook, and he may have utilized these in order to escape or to disguise himself, as seen in traditional Japanese folklore. However, there could be another explanation to this. We never see the greater or outside world throughout many of the games, with choice comments about other isolated towns, islands, or villages throughout City Folk and the other Animal Crossing games, and, save for other players, we don't see any adult humans. Has that part of civilization as we know it been destroyed by natural disasters or illness, leaving empty museums ripe for plunder? Does Red then travel into the destroyed or old world that has been forgotten to collect its relics? There is also, of course, the ability to have more than one genuine art piece, through trading and other means. Is it just a truly convincing fake that even Blathers is in on? Or is Red capable of stealing from multiple realities? 8. Harv's Co-op. In the 2.0 update, Harv has started a co-op that sees various wandering salesmen and women set up shop at his campground. Although many will still occasionally visit your island, they seem to now live at this site. What is a co-op in the first place? While many are more familiar with the tents and caravans, with a mental image of the hippie movement that Harv clearly portrays, quote, "The cooperative housing movement began in Europe in the 19th century, primarily in Great Britain and France, as a means to provide affordable housing for persons whose other choice might be rental of a tenement flat from a landlord that controlled the premises much like a king controls his kingdom. Cooperatives also provided a solution to housing shortages that arose when industrial development attracted people into the cities and targeted at working-class families who could not afford to purchase a home. They offered sound shelter at affordable prices, relying on self-help efforts to members to reduce costs." End quote. Let's look at Kix, the skunk and shoe and accessory salesman. In City Folk, we first meet him and he can be seen found outside a rundown building. This building used to be owned by Brewster, as he reveals when he says he used to own a place in the city that did bad business and is boarded up now. He can now be found only on fair weather days to work, although he eventually manages to open a small store in New Leaf. In Animal Crossing New Horizons and Pocket Camp, he began with randomly visiting the island to sell some of his wares. Could Kix have been down on his luck yet again, no longer shining shoes but still trying to eke out a living and expand his business? Could he really afford to be away from his main store if he still had one? Perhaps coming to the islands of Animal Crossing New Horizons, where the land isn't owned by a giant corporation, and even where some of his expenses to get a trailer were paid for, as it can be assumed that part of the $100,000 paid to the co-op to open up a space goes towards acquiring all of the characters some small form of housing. Were prices on the mainland getting too expensive, forcing all of these characters to change their cost of living and start over? Level 3. Under the Surface. 9. Archipelago Environments. Particularly visible in the DLC's map of the archipelago, glacial icebergs are naturally located next to beaches, multiple preferred seasons are already in play, etc. How can each section and coordinate on the map be host to wholly different environments, much less seasons, in such a way? Would not the heat of a summer island so close to a snowy peak melt it? The main island of Happy Home Paradise is in the middle, so we have a rough estimate of how much space each square in the grid takes up. So we do know that they are incredibly close together. Is this archipelago actually a natural geological and meteorological occurrence or a freak act of nature, or is it man-made? We're never able to position the camera directly up into the sky. Could some instruments or technological station be above each region, controlling the climate and keeping them stable throughout the year? 10. Dream Suite. Previously introduced in past games as well as Animal Crossing New Horizons, players are able to fall asleep and enter the dreams of dream worlds of other players. How are we able to converse with Luna, and why does it take a code to find other islands? While straightforward from a meta standpoint, it's akin to utilizing a routing number. In this case, it's almost like a VR simulation, but without the VR technology. Going back to the implanted microchip theory, could this allow all of the denizens of the Animal Crossing world to interact with one another across space and time? Your island or town number is actually your designated number as a being whose memories and consciousness are now uploaded and linked to be shared with others. 11. The Roost. A fan favorite, The Roost has appeared in multiple games across the series, wherein players can enjoy a cup of joe with some of the favorite characters. In New Horizons, this still holds true, with island residents as well as returning characters appearing. An interesting aspect of the 2.0 update is that villagers that have previously been kicked off your island will reportedly remember you, or at least make reference to their past time there. Previously, the only way a villager, such as Flip, would remember you would be if you picked him out and another player took him to their island and you visited him there or retrieved him. Otherwise, the next time you use his amiibo or find him on an island, it'd be like meeting him for the first time. 12. Main villagers in Happy Home Paradise. By inviting your villager over to Happy Home Paradise with the chocolates, they can have a vacation home as well as remain a main resident on your own island. While it could be said that they take the same plane to and from the island that you take, that gets a bit messy when going back and forth a multitude of times. Do they drop everything to go when you do, or is there a separate character that now lives on this island, as multiple of the same character clearly exist, as evidenced by multiple players having the same characters and being able to interact with them on others' islands? Do they have a hive mind so they know what the other is doing and share information? Level 4. Center of the Iceberg. 13. Plant Manipulation. As a part of the DLC, plants can be manipulated and show incredibly unnatural growth rates beyond what was previously discussed in the prior videos. Plants and trees can be laid out, picked up and moved, and can be forced through their growth cycle instantaneously. An acorn-bearing oak tree can grow from seedling to adult in a matter of seconds, rather than the 4 in-game days. Flowers can have buds removed and then immediately regrown, etc. Again, looking at the more meta or plausible answer, flowers and trees throughout all stages of development can be used and shipped in at a moment's notice. On the other hand, it seems as if the player can directly control a plant's growth or recession instantaneously when on the archipelago, which, as previously seen, is host to a volley of geographical and natural anomalies. If the technology exists to age or de-age plants, can the same be said of the denizens of this world? 14. Katrina. The fortune-telling Katrina is a longtime staple of the franchise and can now appear on Harv's Island Co-op. Her fortunes can have either positive or negative impacts on such things as belongings, friendship, health, and money, effectively counting as the new luck-based system of New Horizons. Using the health aspect as an example, the player's health can be improved, as their power will be doubled upon eating food. Does this somehow bless their bodies, allowing them to absorb more nutrients from what they eat? On the other side, the negative impacts of a bad fortune can diminish or have the power of consuming food, and there is now a chance to trip. However, upon receiving a negative fortune, the player is still able to pay for Katrina to remove the curse-like effects. Is she putting hexes consciously upon you, thus encouraging you to pay her a fee in order to dispel it? Or is a negative entity responding to her mystical incantations, akin to a Ouija board? Why does she charge a seeming excessive 10,000 bells just to purify you? Additionally, when it comes to friendship, what causes the strength of a friendship to grow or wane due to this? Are villagers in on this and are being paid to progress the friendship? Or are their mental states or memories altered to account for these changing feelings? 15. Where do visitors come from? Where do the visitors to the archipelago come from? The second that one is helped and their vacation home is completed, another appears in its place on the beach, in the cafe, etc. Are they waiting just offshore as per a population limit? Are they teleported in? Considering the Animal Crossing world runs on a 24-hour schedule, how could someone be notified and brought to the island within a span of 30 minutes or less? Meta. For time purposes, they simply are set to appear in order to fill a choice slot for the player, so they have another option when selecting a new client. In-universe, perhaps they really are teleported down to the beach the moment a vacancy is opened up, or they do just lie in wait. How did the other characters get to the Mystery Islands when we found them, anyway? No other boats or transportation can be found. While they say they are exploring, it's almost as if they've just been dumped there. Level 5. Lower Half. 16. Previous property owners. When first constructing the school, Lottie makes reference to the previous owners of the archipelago, stating that, quote, "Before I set up shop, someone else was working on developing the island. They built all of these, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And I guess they just left the properties like this." End quote. This is odd for a few reasons. Why would they abandon this project, leaving materials and fully built buildings behind? And why wasn't a reason given? A. The original owners ran out of money and were unable to sink any more into the project. As a result, they then sold it to recoup what losses they could. B. Perhaps, after completing much of the main island, they began exploring further out to the other islands and noticed the strange natural phenomenon. Perhaps scared of the abnormalities, they left the island as soon as they could, selling it to the first bidder. C. Perhaps they were muscled out of it, or otherwise threatened. By whom is uncertain, but could Tom Nook or others have done a solid for their friend Lottie and threatened or outbid the previous owners to help her realize her dream? D. They became ill or tragedies hindered the project. Whether they became ill, like Lottie, or members of their crew died, that could be reason enough to abandon the project. Could something else have spooked them? 17. Gyroid growth. As seen in prior iterations of the game, and recapitulated by Brewster, gyroids will grow healthy and strong when buried and watered. Gyroids, specifically those with Lloyd's coloration, greatly resemble Haniwa statues, as expanded upon in the previous Iceberg. Now that these statues can be found on Kapp'n's previously unreached islands, and upon your own island after it rains, does this mean that people or animals died or were buried on these islands? And how and why would statues grow? As previously postulated, have the souls of those buried come to inhabit the statues, making beings like Lloyd, living statues that grow and can break? Will the gyroids that you dig up become truly sentient, gazing at you as you place them about to suit your decor and amusements? Or are they sentient already, watching your every move? In universe, why can gyroids be found now? Is the cycle that brought about the deaths of the prior inhabitants coming about again? Or has all the construction and wear on the island over the year plowed up the earth below enough that they are able to come close enough to the surface to be found? 18. Polishing. The act of polishing an object creates a series of seeming sparkles that glitter about the object that is polished. Once upgraded, the player is able to select a different effect to be applied. Most notable, in my opinion, is the flutter flap design that spawns moving butterflies about an object. How can visual effects or living creatures spawn from rubbing an item with a cloth? Is this cloth actually a piece of advanced tech capable of producing holographic projections that can be set up about an object once applied? This could also explain how pre-created custom designs can also be utilized. Level 6. Bottom of the Iceberg. 19. Mind reading. Upon the player getting into their work clothes and holding their clipboards, the inner thoughts or desires of the potential clientele can be seen. Nico even comments that, quote, "All you have to do is look in their eyes, and it's almost like you can read their minds." End quote. How would Nico know that it would be so easy, or that the player would immediately click with this process? Like the polishing cloth, do the clipboard or work uniform somehow enable the player to access such thoughts in the visitor's minds? More specifically, is it only able to access or otherwise target these thoughts or desires related to the style of vacation home they would most enjoy? No one seems to question any of these powers or seeming omniscience. So is this technology or a power that is normal in this world, or one that is just never discussed? 20. Altering time. In order to give characters the ideal setting for their home, the time of day in their area can be altered to morning, noon, dusk, night, and anywhere in between in Happy Home Paradise. This also makes occurrences such as eternal day or night possible. In the instance of eternal night, this would certainly, or should certainly, kill off many of the plants and trees that rely upon sunlight in the photosynthetic process, and the temperature should drop. Again, all coordinates of the archipelago are close together, and two adjacent locales could feature day and night respectively at the same time. How is this possible? A. Each coordinate is controlled by an atmospheric sensor or technological creation that allows for this manipulation. The player is in charge of controlling this. But how do they do it? Does their special clipboard have codes or buttons to input this information? Or is there a mic that the player's wishes are communicated into? B. The world is in virtual reality that simulates taste, smells, and touch, allowing players to create, connect, and it also explains the occurrence of multiples of the same character. C. The world takes place in the spiritual plane and the realms of beings such as yokai. The tanuki leaf, which furniture can be condensed into, is one such example of this power. Is it so hard to believe that other magical beings could be employed to regulate the weather or the seasons? 21. Multiple villagers in one location. As said many times throughout the DLC, many villagers can share the exact same location. This is not a matter of two characters rooming together, but of them each occupying the same exact place physically, allowing it to be tailored wholly differently and does not interact with the other's existence. Unless the map is wholly incorrect and there are various replica islands or copies, how is this possible? Are the player and other employees able to create a rift in space-time in order to establish another villager within the same location? Level 7. Under the Iceberg. 22. Mannequin items. The new mannequin-based dummy, like the skeleton and anatomical model, depict a normally proportioned human being. Throughout the series, no normally proportioned human being is ever seen, but they are clearly depicted in artwork, statues, and these furniture items. Why? Is this awesome VR world with avatars? All of the characters are normal humans but wearing costumes, including the player? Or have they all evolved or otherwise mutated into what we see today? 23. Brewster's gyroids. Assuming that the gyroids are, in fact, Haniwa, why do some look like Brewster? Could these be former members of Brewster's family, demonstrating the similar features, or, as evidenced by his preoccupation with them, by Blathers and his own account, he keeps them about his person so much that they grew to resemble himself? Could they have been partial broken gyroids that gleaned some of Brewster's essence when buried, containing a tiny piece of his soul or being? Or has he culled other iterations of himself, all to collect a gyroid made in his own image? 24. Kapp'n Islands. The new islands that Kapp'n brings you to in his boat are host to many anomalies. Even when the player has an open plot of land, no potential villagers can be found on these islands, adding all the more to their sense of seclusion and mystery. Boats are, clearly, far slower than airplanes. A standard seaplane, such as the TL Ultralight TL3000 Sirius, has a max speed of 225 kilometers per hour or 140 miles per hour, while the average fishing boat, such as the Lund A14 small fishing boat of similar proportions to Kapp'n's, normally sees only a 15 horsepower motor that can clock about 28 to 32 miles per hour. How is Kapp'n able to bring us to these mystery islands that, logically speaking, should be much closer, but were never considered when scoping out islands through Dodo Airlines that were random? A. Meta. It could be taking far longer to reach them, but the cutscene length is designed to show an indeterminate passage of time. B. As a Kappa, which he is based on, could his powers allow you to enter such areas where magical or unheard of events occur? Spiritual worlds that could see different fields of produce or seasons all at the same time. C. These islands, due to their weather and natural fauna, were restricted or no-fly zones. Did they interact poorly with the airplane, as the sharp change in air, such as going from summer on your island to winter on one of these, or vice versa, could impact the plane negatively? Think of an insane heat or cold front. Could it also interact negatively with the instruments of the plane? Could they have been deemed an unknown biohazard? D. These areas were failed experiments in regulating the elements and time of day. As for the bottles or DIY recipes still found here, these could be from the lost souls, assuming this is a spiritual plane, and it was left by them or a victim whose soul was taken or who died as a castaway. Level 8. The Abyss. 25. The Island Representative. How curious is it that the player becomes the de facto island representative, is the one that, honestly, financially covers so many projects themselves, starts the co-op, is approached by Lottie, and so many other factors. In the meta, it allows the player more control over customization, but in universe, it seems particularly pointed, as if it was planned not simply as a result of the player's accolades. In each Animal Crossing game, the world seems to progress quickly and substantially due to the human player character. 26. The Ruins. Previously unseen ruins can be found on the main island of Happy Home Paradise, as well as the glowing moss and vines that can similarly be found on Kapp'n's islands. No reference is made to these structures. What could they be from? Their crumbled and weathered appearance gives the impression that they are quite old, predating the previous island owners and many that came before. Who were they? In universe, Happy Home Paradise dropped at the same time as the 2.0 update, allowing the locales that boast the linking features and gyroids to appear. Simply put, the former inhabitants are the gyroids or Haniwa statue people that first populated these islands centuries ago, leaving behind their structures to the passage of time. But what did happen to them? Perhaps they all died out due to a dwindling population that was unsustainable for reproduction. They left due to the unpredictable weather patterns, or they simply left to expand to other islands. 27. Glowing Moss Dust. When running through glowing moss clumps, a golden dust is seen being emitted from them. What exactly is this? Most likely it is the germinating spore that is released for reproduction. But what if this could be the explanation for the islands devoid of sentient life? The only islands found with atypical weather patterns that don't have touring villagers or other visitors are these odd islands home to this moss or otherwise found in the similar white cliffed areas. Could the spores have been the cause of the deaths of those that would become the gyroids that we find? The toxins, once inhaled, slowly infected and killed all of the inhabitants and life forms susceptible to them. This could be the cause of Lottie's brief illness, the potential reason the previous property owners abandoned the island, and why the ruins were left behind. Of all the locales in the archipelago, it is the main island and the islands B, 2, 3, and C, 2, 3 that have additional ruins, vines, and the same glowing moss. 28. Alien Zoo. Akin to the human farms in the Matrix, perhaps all of the inhabitants exist in a Matrix-like simulation, which explains the glitches and presence of multiple lines of code or villagers, etc. Or perhaps this is an artificial landscape that is imbued with seemingly magical, advanced alien technology, all in an attempt to create mini zoos for alien viewership. Could the ruins or gyroids be a result of the alien takeover that left the world as it is now, the remaining denizens under their control, mutated or experimented upon like lab rats in a zoo, allowed just enough freedom to customize and sate their minds, akin to the enrichment given to animals in captivity? And that concludes this short little iceberg. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, let me know some of your thoughts down below. Thanks!